Hello and welcome back to my channel. It's been a while. I took a bit of a break over Christmas, which then turned into a 4-month break. And in that time, I've tried my hardest to fall in love with Cities Skylines 2, but I just can't do it. The game just isn't what I expected it to be, and I think that's the same for a lot of people, especially people who've been playing Cities Skylines for a lot longer than I have. So it's a bit disappointing to see how lackluster it was. But just because the second game came out doesn't mean the first one has disappeared. And I don't know about you, but I much prefer playing with the first game right now. So I'm going to do something that probably isn't advisable when the second version of a game comes out, but I'm going to start a brand new series on the first one. I'm using the Colossal Hillside map by Al from the Steam Workshop, and I've changed the theme from temperate to tropical. And I'm using some themes and colour correction this time to make it feel a little bit nicer to look at. That was some feedback from my Calathea series. If I'm being honest, I didn't actually understand what this all meant until more recently, because I tried out themes before, but I didn't have the theme mixer, so I just kind of gave up trying to figure out which was the best one to use. But now that I've got the theme mixer, I'm using the Seenu Atoll map theme by Strictoaster, and I'm using the Relight neutral lux from creativeDEX. This series is going to be a very thoughtful city build, and each episode is going to be focused on a very specific thing. As fun as it was to build, Calathea was a hot mess by the end. I was so stressed every time I came to make an episode because I was giving myself too much to do in one go. Over the last 4 or 5 months I've been playing the game a lot, and I finally feel like I'm confident in doing a lot of things that I was too nervous to touch in my previous series. I've already come in and made some adjustments to the roads, intersections and landscape so that I have the best basis for starting a new city. So this is a bird's eye view of the map. It will look a bit different to the version that you've got from the workshop because I've already gone in and added some new highways, changed some intersections and added to the existing train network. I'm going to try and make sure that this map has everything available to me through the packs that I have. So this is the general overview of what I've got planned. There's going to be some smaller towns and villages on this flat piece up here, as well as some in the foothills of this mountain. There's going to be some industry areas dotted around where you can kind of see the natural resources under the ground, like a big oil area up here, and I'm going to carve out a part of the mountain in this section to do some ore. I'm also going to have some farming down here and another section up here. There's also going to be a generic industry area down by this intersection with a cargo terminal for easy access onto the highways. I'm obviously going to have industry dotted in throughout all of the districts, but I'm going to make sure I carve out areas for the specialised industries. I'm also going to do a lot of the unique factories like I did in Calathea. I really enjoyed the factory, cargo terminal, business park that I did towards the end of that series. So I'm going to try and do a few of those in this one, but not put them all in one place because that made traffic a nightmare. Towards the bottom of the map here is going to be the main city. There's going to be a lot of high rises and offices. I am going to be doing an airport area, but I haven't quite decided where the best place on this map would be to have it. So if you can see any areas that would be great for an airport area, please let me know in the comments. My initial thoughts are this piece of land down here. It's on quite a few different levels, but I'm thinking of leveling out this piece here and turning that into an airport. Or this piece of land down here in between the train line and the river. That would have really good transport links, but it would mean planes coming right into the centre of the city. Or I was thinking this piece of land up here at the foothills of these mountains. Now this is really far away from the city centre, so that might not be the best idea. I would also like to have a cargo port because that was really useful in Calathea to bring lots of goods in at once. And obviously we have quite a long coastline down here, but I am planning on using this area as tourism and this bit down here for more of a high income area. So the first thing that I'm going to do with this series is a small sleepy town far away from the main city. I've mapped out this area here for a simple town and farming district. I learned from my Calathea series that if you try and do too many of the same thing early on when you've got everything unlocked, things will start to remove themselves because the city just doesn't have the population to be able to sustain them. So I'm trying to be very mindful of that as I do this series, and I'm sure I'll still get stuff wrong, but hopefully by starting with industry and a small town to support it, I won't have as many issues as I had in that one. I put in a cargo terminal here because this is the very beginning of the game. They're not going to have the industry to support every single thing that they're going to need. So getting goods in via train will hopefully take some of the trucks off of the road. It is very close to the edge of the map, so it's not going to be pulling trucks in from too far away, hopefully. But regardless of whether it actually helps with that or not, it will later on become part of an internal cargo train network like I did in Calathea. Goods were just being sent back and forth between these industry areas without having to have trucks on the road. So this is the road structure that I'm going to be working with for this first district. The farming is going to be within this bit on the left, and the town is going to be off to the right. Try to use a lot of organic shapes in this district because early builds throughout history have usually had more of an organic structure to them than a grid structure. But I still need those right angles within the farming area because the assets are all quite large and square. but this will kind of be disguised by the curved roads going around the edge. There's going to be a lot of small details within this area that's going to make it feel like a proper working farm. So obviously this early in the game we don't have any power or water or sewage, so all of those things are going to need to be within this complex. But I've got loads of assets from the workshop that fit the farm vibe perfectly. So for the first time in this new series, I'm going to get stuck into building. I'm pausing this build for a second just to mention that I got a kitten a couple of months ago and he is the neediest, cuddliest kitten I've ever met. And I'm sure that he'll be interrupting my builds all the time for attention. And he has the cutest little meow. He's currently sitting on my lap while I'm trying to build, so expect to hear some very cute cat noises in the background of my videos from now on. So here is the overview of the farm area. It does look very basic, but I can promise it's not going to look like this by the time I'm done with it. I'm going to be using a lot of trees, some fences, some bushes and foliage, and a few props here and there to fill in all of these gaps so that I can turn this into this. here is the farm now that it's got all the detailing in. It makes such a huge difference just to add some trees and a few props here and there. It really fills in all of those tiny little gaps and makes it feel much more like a working farm. I added in a fence that runs along the main road that separates the farm from the town, and I pulled the fence along the roads in the middle to kind of give a barrier to some of the assets. This fruit tree asset here has a few details that just kind of give it that extra touch. Got a fake pathway going in on the side where this little open area is, and I've also taken the trees from the Find It catalogue and artificially extended it up to the road so that it doesn't just look like a rectangle plonked onto a curved road. I couldn't quite do the same for the fields, but I created more artificial pathways and kind of backed the fields onto each other so that it looks like it's all part of one thing from a distance. I put some solar panels in this empty pocket, and I also lined this road with these little units. It looks like you can get to them to service them from this road back here. This here is a biogas facility. It takes in waste, but it also produces a small amount of electricity, and I feel like it fits in with that farm theme because this structure in the middle looks similar to some of the cylinders that are on some of the farming assets. These windmills here are from the workshop. They don't just provide electricity, but they also take away waste. Because we're really far away from the coast up here, and I didn't really want to put any land sewage stuff up here, so these came in really handy for getting rid of sewage. I used a lot of these bushes around just to fill in some gaps and kind of add to the base of these windmills to make it look like no one's been over there in a while. And I also used some of these roof props that I think came from some of the assets that I downloaded from the workshop, because they kind of look like mini versions of these just to fill in this gap back here. A lot of these assets are lined with trees just to give them a barrier of separation, and then back here is a lot of the same, just these bushes and trees and little windmills to fill the gaps. These two here are also from the workshop. They're actually electricity sources as well. It's kind of a bit of a play on horsepower because these are little horse props and they move around so it looks like it's part of a farm, but it kind of has that added benefit of producing electricity as well. There's a few of the farm industry assets around because I didn't want to just use the industry specific ones because the ecosystem within the industry areas is so delicate and the assets are often really big. So I kind of added these little barns in around just to fill some gaps but keep that farm theme going. I used a couple of these shacks from the workshop to kind of make it look like they're rundown outbuildings outside the back of some of the assets. And there's another one over here with an abandoned truck out the front and some hay bales and some general rubbish. I've also used the paint tool to make some artificial pathways to look like this area gets walked down quite a lot. I've also used the same trick with the trees here to extend this fruit field up to the road to fill in this very long, thin triangular gap. I couldn't quite extend it to the back of the asset, but I feel like this looks better than it did before. Farm headquarters are over here on this little road that runs through the middle, and I put in an abandoned house asset behind it to make it look like this was once the headquarters, but they've since moved into a nice new building. Finally over here is a few of these Grecian style windmills from the workshop. They're not quite the same theme as the rest of the build, but I felt like they had that kind of old-timey feel, and they add a small amount to the electricity grid as well. So that's the first build of this new series complete. This district doesn't have a name yet, so if you've got any suggestions about what it should be called, please leave them down in the comments. I'm really looking forward to getting stuck into a new series after the disappointment of the second game. I find this game to be so much more fulfilling, and although we don't have the same field tools as we have on the second game, I feel like it's a very small price to pay for something that looks this much better. Let me know if there's anything that you'd like to see in this series. I'm going to be doing some smaller, more detailed builds, as well as some larger ones like this. Let me know what you think of this build in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.